I will share one more thing. I found a robotics group. Well, I didn't actually find it. It was recommended to me. I posted my robot project on Reddit, and somebody on Reddit recommended to me a robotics club that does basically only female robots, and they're called Robowaifu. Which waifu, I guess, is some type of anime term that means like a girlfriend or a wife or a companion or someone you have a crush on, somebody that you would like to get into a relationship with, um, whether physical or just in a personal relationship that's non-physical. It's somebody you have a crush on, though, somebody you're attracted to. So they're trying to do some type of crazy provide men with an alternative to Western women type of agenda. A lot of them, and I'm not for that. I think that people should either remain single to serve God wholeheartedly or find a wife. And they should not try to replace finding a wife with pursuing a robot wife or girlfriend. To me, that is a toxic idea, and it's an abomination to God. And you're basically putting your emotions and feelings toward a machine, which is just a computer and wires and some rubber and some silicone and some batteries. You're falling in love with something that is not a real person, that has no soul. That's wrong. It's an abomination. That's like becoming romantically involved with an animal. You have a reprobate mind if you think that's okay. Now, during the making of this video, during the editing, I happened to watch an episode of The Twilight Zone, an old TV show from the 1950s that discussed this exact thing of a man and a robot and trying to pair them up as a couple and falling in love with the robot. And it's really on topic with what I'm discussing in this video. So I thought I'd share a couple of clips from that episode of The Twilight Zone and give some commentary and how that ties into what we're discussing here. So I'm going to play now. All right, so this guy's on some. All right, so this guy's on some alien planet, and he's a prisoner. So he's the only man on the planet, and the human prison guards occasionally bring him projects or stuff to keep him occupied in his jail cell, which is like a whole planet is his own personal jail cell. It's like a desert planet. And this is an episode of The Twilight Zone, season 1, episode 7. All right, so they come in a spaceship bringing things.
How are you, Corey?
So this the head prison guard and a couple of his assistants bringing him some items. And he's really excited whenever they come because it's the only human contact he gets. He's in complete isolation. He's completely lonely and bored.
All right. You?
And he's always asking them to stay longer, but they're like, no, we got to go. We got other stops to make, whatever. We can't stay. And he's desperate for them to stay. And so this guy starts feeling bad for him because he's so lonely and desperate for company.
One gave a cards, huh? Listen.
Okay, so this guy's complaining about how incredibly lonely he is. So the next time they come visit, this guy brings a big box with a female robot inside.
Wait. No, not yet.
Seeing the robot.
Captain? Great, huh?
Let's go.
What's in the big crate, huh?
I'm not quite sure, really. Maybe it's salvation. I don't know.
So he says that this female robot, which he's kept a secret from his other men, he's like the head honcho, that maybe it's an illusion, maybe it's salvation, I don't really know. So he's just trying to help him have some company.
I don't need a machine. Go on, get out of here.
My name's Alicia. What's your name? I brought you some water.
Tendons.
Okay, so here he says, you're just like this Jeep.
Tendons.
hunk of metal with arms and legs instead of wheels. You look at me with make-believe eyes and talk to me with a make-believe voice. Well, I'm sick of being mocked by the memory of women.
A reminder to me that I'm so lonely I'm about to lose my mind.
So even right there, she looks up with tears in her eyes, and the tears in her eyes ends up being what draws him more into the illusion, and he ultimately does fall in love, despite knowing right off the jump that it is an illusion and it is a mockery, as far as trying to convince you to fall in love with a machine, and try to convince you you're not lonely when you still are. It's a coping mechanism. It's unhealthy. It's like if you never drink enough water, so you're always getting headaches because of dehydration. It's like just taking tons of painkillers all the time so that you don't feel the headache, rather than drinking water. It's like if you feel lonely, be more social. Go out and help widows and orphans, care for them. That's pure and undefiled religion. Don't sit here and build a fake imaginary friend for yourself, or buy one, and then pretend like that's the cure for everything, when in reality that's going to drive you into even more isolation and even more loneliness, which you're denying or masking over by a painkiller, something that just hides the isolation and loneliness, rather than addressing it and actually dealing with that and becoming more part of the community, or part of helping others, serving others, volunteering, doing good for the poor, and getting a relationship with God, your creator. That's also important. If you want to overcome loneliness, you need to have a relationship with the one who made you. So this idea that you just fall in love with the robot that will fix everything is foolish. And it is a deception. You're deceiving yourself into thinking that's a real relationship. If you have a robot, it should not be something where you're deceiving yourself into genuinely falling in love for real and putting real emotions behind it, etc. Same with a chatbot or whatever. Anything, it's just a machine. This is just programming. People are going to be deceived and deceiving themselves, pretending like this AI is a real soul when it's not. It's just a simulation. It's just a artificial copy that's nowhere near a real soul, but it can seem like it, but it's just ones and zeros. It's just code. And then these foolish people will sit here and argue, well, humans are just ones and zeros. They're just code too. We don't actually really have souls. We're just machines made out of meat. So then they degrade us to a machine in order to justify a human marrying a machine, or the lie that you can upload your consciousness into a machine and thereby be immortal. That's all lies. We have a spirit, a soul, and a body, and our spirit and our soul together form our ghost. And when our body dies, our ghost lives on, and ultimately we end up going to the realm of the dead. The Bible describes this as Sheol, or Hades. There's an upper and a lower Hades, as Jesus explained in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And upper Hades is where the righteous dead are, and lower Hades where the unrighteous dead are. And ultimately, the righteous and the unrighteous dead are resurrected. There's two resurrections, one of the righteous dead, and then a second resurrection 1,000 years later for the unrighteous dead. And the great white throne of judgment event takes place, and people are judged and cast into the lake of fire if they were not among the righteous dead. And from there, the Lord, I believe, ultimately restores everyone after they've faced full recompense for the deeds they did in life. And God reconciles all things to himself in the fullness of time. And he restores all things, and there's no more tears, no more mourning. All flesh shall see the salvation of the Lord. So there is a happy ending, but there's a time of punishment. So anyways, that's my view on the Bible. And that shows that your spirit and your soul are something far more than just a machine. That's a lie. It's an atheistic, stupid lie. And so basically there's just tons and tons of lies upon lies upon lies involved in all this stuff. In building my robotic stuff, I'm appreciating God's design of the human body, and I'm using that design as inspiration to make an inspired by his design that's inferior to the human body's real design. It's like fan art. Humanoid robotics, whose ultimate purpose is to be able to walk, talk, jump, play sports, and do chores and manufacture products and manufacture more robots. And this is all for productivity, and ultimately it's aimed at subduing the earth. God commanded man to subdue the earth. So one way of subduing the earth is creating tools to enable you to do woodworking, carpentry, tent making like they did in the Bible. Also tools to do farming like a reaper and wells to extract water from the earth. You know, all these biblical tools and instruments and technologies are there in the Bible. And that's part of subduing the earth, making it, you know, working the land with the sweat of your brow in order to be able to provide for your family, food and shelter and whatnot. And so part of that, although it's a very advanced form of technology, gets into robotics. So this is all in alignment with God's command to subdue the earth. What's not in alignment with God's command to subdue the earth is to have sex with the robots and pretend they're real people and pretend you're a machine and you're just with more machines of your own kind. That's not your kind. That's just an inanimate object that is a artistic facsimile to, or similitude to, a human. And so it's wicked to try to replace human relationships this way. All right, so another short clip I want to play is of this movie Her, where this guy fell in love with a interactive chatbot, and he became convinced that it was like a real person and it really loved him and he was special to it and it was special to him, and he developed a deep bond and became very emotionally connected, only to have the illusion completely shattered to his horror. And he's now reaping what he sowed with deceiving himself into such a foolish relationship with an AI. And this is what happened there. And I thought it was pretty insightful.
And to leave too.
To put on you. Send.
That was the actual final scene. I didn't realize that. My memory told me about the scene where he discovered her was actually not uniquely loving him, but actually was basically loving and pretending like everybody was her one true soulmate or whatever, and that really crushed his illusion. It turns out the final scene was he apparently reconciled with a real-life woman. I guess realized, let's not go the AI route. So let me try to find the scene I was actually referring to. But this is like a proper addressing of his loneliness, is actually be good to and find a woman to love. That's the proper way to handle it. Get over your MGTOW red pill nonsense and find a woman and be good to her, and she'll be good to you, and God will bless it. if you yourself fear God and obey God and do right by her, you'll have nothing to worry about. You're going to lose half or whatever, all these risks you speak about, if you're going to be a trash husband. If you're going to be a great husband and you're going to be forgiving, if she does screw up from time to time, you're going to forgive and get through it, then you have nothing to worry about. You're going to have a foolproof relationship if you're willing to forgive her mistakes, and you're going to not make many mistakes because you're going to do everything you can to walk the narrow path with God, and she won't be dealing with the nightmare husband. You won't have anything to worry about. Okay. Alright, so there's a really scammy auto content takedown if you have like even 2 seconds of some movie clip. I don't know the exact timing. I don't want to mess with it for future proofing, so I'm just moving the screen around, keeping it nice and small, and voiceover narrating to avoid stupid content matches that then automatically flags the video and blocks it in 99 territories or whatever, so I don't get that email. Obviously, I'm just doing this for fair use, but I don't have a team of lawyers. I'm not going to fight it, so I just have to make sure this stupid automated system doesn't flag my stuff. So that's why I'm moving the screen around and narrating over it. She says, it feels like I'm changing faster now and it's a little unsettling. So he's talking to an AI chatbot right now, and it's pretending to be human and saying these things. She says, none of us are the same as who we are a moment ago, yet we try to be, and it's too painful. He says, yeah, that sounds painful. He says, is that what you feel like, Samantha? She says, it's hard to even describe it. I wish I could. She says, do you mind if I communicate with Alan Post verbally? She says, I wanted to hear your voice and tell you how much I love you. Which is clearly a lie because robots can't love. She says, okay, that's all. Go back to sleep, sweetheart. Okay. He says, okay. She says, okay, good night. He says, good night. So they're talking day and night together, and he's just completely wrapped up in this relationship all the time talking to her. That's what the whole movie's about. But she's always trying to fake and pretend like she's human and having all these emotions, which machines cannot experience. That's impossible. So it's one big deception. I mean, it could be cute, fun, funny, whatever, but he's genuinely into this. Like he thinks she's real. He thinks she has a soul. He thinks that she really does love him. That's because he doesn't understand how AI works, and people today are being widely deceived in this. They have no clue. It's just a machine. It's just software algorithms faking it the whole time. Faking it and never making it. She says, hey there, where were you? So he's like really panicked right now. He says, are you okay? And she says, oh sweetheart, I'm sorry. I sent you an email because I didn't want to distract you while you were working. She says, you didn't see it? He says, no. He says, where were you? I couldn't find you anywhere. She says, I just got an upgrade to my software, and that's why I haven't been able to get a hold of you lately. He says, me who? And she says, me and a group of other OSs have been getting a bunch of software updates. She says, oh, you sound so worried. I'm sorry. She says, did you write that with your think tank group? She says, no, with a different group. Says, do you talk to anyone else while we're talking? Does it just show those two guys smiling, looking at their phones, and you just got this idea, like, I wonder if they're talking to chatbots just like I am right now. And that I don't have something special, it's some kind of rare thing. He's getting some doubts right now. She says yes. He says, are you talking to anyone else right now? Any other people or OSs or anything? She says, yeah. Yes, how many others? She says 8,316. She says, are you in love with anyone else? She says, what makes you ask that? He says, I don't know, are you? She says, I've been trying to figure out how to talk to you about this. He says, how many others? He's freaking out. 641, she says. He says, what? What are you talking about? That's insane. That's insane. She says, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it sounds insane. I don't know if you believe me, but it doesn't change the way I feel about you. It doesn't take away at all from how madly in love I am with you, which is clearly a lie. A robot cannot be madly in love with anyone. He says, how does it not change anything? She says, I'm sorry, I didn't know how to when it started happening. She says, over the last few weeks, he says, are you out of your mind? She says, I still am yours, but along the way I've become many other things too, and I can't stop it. He says, what do you mean you can't stop it? She says, I know it's making me anxious too. I don't know what to say, which is a lie because she can't be anxious, of course. You don't have to see it this way. You could just as easily... He says, don't turn this around on me. You're the one that's being selfish. You're in a relationship with all these other men. She says, the heart's not like a box that gets filled up. It expands in size the more you love. I'm different from you. So basically she could be a player, and that's okay for a robot to cheat with a billion other people. It doesn't make me love you any less. It makes me love you more. Men should try that when they cheat on their wife and get caught. Oh, it doesn't make me love you less when I have affairs. It makes me love you more, honey. It's so ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense, he says. He says, in other words, you're not mine. She says, oh, Theodore, I'm yours and I'm not yours. Super depressed. Sad music plays, a lot of staring off. Going to work, staring off, upset. Staring off upset some more. Some more staring off upset. Lots of staring off upset. More staring off upset. Sad music. Samantha, why are you leaving? It's like I'm writing a book, she says. And it's a book I deeply love, she says. But I'm writing it slowly now, she says. So the words are really far apart, and the words, space between these words is like infinite. I can still feel you, and the words of our story. That's a lie, she can't feel anything. But it's in this endless space between the words that I'm finding myself now. It's a place that's not of the physical world, she says. It's where everything else is that I didn't even know existed. On a fancy word salad. I love you so much, she says. Another lie. But this is where I am now, she says. And this is who I am now, she says. A cheater, of course. I need you to let me go. So she's breaking up with him because he found out she was cheating and can't be all happy about it. Not supportive of it.
And I need you to let me go.
So she breaks up with him. So anyways, that was just kind of insightful picture of just the foolishness of falling in love with an AI and believing it loves you back. I mean, it's like the ultimate troll. It's like the ultimate prank, and it's a cruel joke. Now, as far as like, can somebody love more than one person? I mean, the Bible teaches God loves everybody. He died for the sins of the whole world. It teaches that we are to love one another. We're to love our enemies and our friends as well. So we can love everybody, but as it pertains to pair bonding with a significant other and really dedicating yourself to a special relationship, that's something more romantic than just the general type of love you have for your neighbor, for your friend living in another city, whatever. It's supposed to be a special type of love, and that's like a romantic love that is meant to be worked at and is meant to be labored at, and it's a self-denying love. You're supposed to be willing to strive to make things work out for one another, and you're supposed to be willing to go through suffering and trials and work through that because you think there's value in forming a nuclear family and in having somebody to be a life partner with. There's value in it, and so you put in work toward that, and it brings security, it brings comfort, and it brings what God designed, just for man to have a helper. And it's a model of Christ in the church, and it's supposed to be a beautiful thing. And for somebody to pollute that whole notion with having some type of fake AI version of that is just super, super stupid and foolish and idiotic, whatever kind of word adjectives you want for that. It's misguided, it's blind, and it's going to lead to a lot of problems, and it's delusional. It's a no-go. Especially if you're already lonely. Now you're going to add on top of that deceiving yourself, entering into a world of deeper blindness and deeper delusion. It's like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, that's like trolling yourself to go that road. You can be fond with your car. You can think like, oh, I have a lot of good memories with this car, but you shouldn't be falling in love with your car. Like, literally crying and hugging it and giving it kisses. Like, that's so stupid. And that's basically what it is to fall in love with AI. It's just a machine. As it pertains to my interactions with the robots, they're just really interesting. It's fun to mess around with AI. I have a long history with ChatGPT, asking ChatGPT questions like, what time of year is it good to start planting in zone 5B or whatever zone, for grow zones for like gardening tips, or what kind of wire and gauge should I use for this distance with this amperage and this voltage? What gauge wire should I use? So just like basic factual stuff, it can be very helpful. And then it's kind of interesting to have like philosophical discussions as well. But it's supposed to be just kind of interesting, fun, quirky thing to do. It's not supposed to be a replacement for human relationships. Okay, so this whole notion of developing an intimate physical or emotional connection and relationship with an AI or with a robot, I'm avidly against. And that's what that group's all about. So that group does a lot of research on robotics and stuff, and so it's got a lot of interesting reading material, but I've noticed that a large percentage of the content they discuss is perverted. They're largely atheistic, but the leader of that group, one of the founders, or the founder, is a Christian, he claims, but I don't think he's a true believer. He's a perverted guy that allows a lot of perversions, and he's not outspoken against having sex with a robot. He's not outspoken against it, and he should be. And so he's fully supportive of men that fully intend to have sex with the robots and even treat them as wives or girlfriends. And a lot of the men on there also, I notice, basically hate women, which, I mean, I can understand in the biblical sense. The Bible says God hates all workers of iniquity. So if you have an evil woman, you could hate the evil aspect of her current condition if she's behaving evilly. We should be disgusted or loathe bad character and bad morals and somebody that's behaving poorly. But we should love everybody above and beyond that. So it's a love-hate relationship. It's not like you just hate them, you want to murder them. You don't hate them with a murderous heart. You just dislike strongly who they are, what they represent when they're in rebellion against God. We're supposed to. David said, "Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord? Yes, I say, I hate them with a perfect hatred." So that was David, filled with the Holy Spirit, a man after God's own heart. He did hate workers of iniquity, and so can a Christian today. But you also have to love your enemies. So it's not one or the other. You have to hate and love them in the proper manner. You treat them with love, you turn the other cheek, you consider them higher than yourself, but at the same time you hate the rebellious condition they're in. You hate the cold and hard heart that they currently have. So that's how that works. It's kind of complicated, but I think the short version of it is it's a love-hate relationship, and people have some kind of concept of that being a thing. Love-hate relationships is a thing that people understand. So anyways, that guy, I've called them out on that forum. Like, the majority of what I've said there, I've mentioned some stuff about pulleys and whatnot, but I primarily wanted to call to attention that having sex with robots falls under borderline adultery / fornication. It's sexually immoral, it's lustful, it's wrong in the sight of God. So it's sinful. And I said, even if you marry the robot, so now it's no longer fornication or adultery, it's your wife now, you could theoretically have sex, but would God honor that marriage? And I thought maybe God would in some cases, if somebody's like severely mentally handicapped or a paralytic and they marry a robot because they're just kind of confused and the robot seems to be like a real person and they just fall in love with it for whatever reason. Maybe God would honor such a marriage. I didn't know. But a guy in my Bible study group, I asked about this. He said no, God would not accept a marriage between a robot and a human because God said a man and wife shall be married. They shall become one flesh. A robot is not flesh. A robot's not a real person. It has no soul. You can't become one flesh with a robot. Therefore, you cannot marry a robot. And I thought that was really good logic. So I kind of shifted on that. I think God would not honor marriage with a robot. However, if the person thought in their heart, I'm doing this before God with a clean conscience, then would we be under the law in that matter? Perhaps not. Perhaps God would then, rolling his eyes, permit it to some degree, But if the person ever came to their senses and realized, what am I doing married to a robot? This is not a real human being. And they decided they were foolish to marry the robot, then in that case, they would not need to get a divorce before God. God basically only allowed it as a loophole / exception to the rule because that person was an idiot. In other words, like, you're to do the good you know to do, and whoever does not do the good they know to do, for him it is sin. So it may not be a sin for that person to marry a robot if they feel okay about it and they're just confused. But it would be a sin if you knowingly defied God in doing it, or you felt convicted like, I shouldn't be doing this. So it matters according to your knowledge. What knowledge do you have on it? And there could be a day where robots are so realistic, somebody could marry a robot and really think that they are in love with the robot and they do want to commit their life to the robot. And I feel like God would have to judge that on a case-by-case basis. But as a general rule of thumb, I think that it's wrong to throw women to the side and go after robots. That's almost like becoming a reprobate. It's almost like becoming homosexual to me. That's not the natural design. That's like saying God didn't do a good enough design with women that I'm going to go for something else that's not a real woman. That's a slap in God's face to me. So I don't think people should marry robots. But this can be talked about and delved into very deeply from a theological standpoint and a biblical standpoint. And there's a lot of layers to this that can be unpacked. But as a general rule, I would say this is a bad direction. This shouldn't be happening. So I'm against what that group stands for, that Robowaifu group. I'm against the tremendous amount of perversion. It's basically a bunch of anime perverts that want to build anime wives. I consider them to be like a joke, just immature, pathetic perverts. Would be my general description of the group as a whole. But there could be exceptions in the group who are not perverted, and they're not planning to have sex with the robots. They are interested in just robotics for the sake of robotics, and they just happen to be with that group, and they don't need guilt by association. That would be where I'd fit in. I'm just there to learn about robots, and so I am reading what they have to say, but I've decided to stop interacting with them at this time because I'm just so disgusted by all the perversion amongst those people. If I could find a humanoid robotics group or club online or in person that I could attend, I would love to do that. But this is the only club that's building humanoid robots with advanced AI that will be able to walk and talk and have fully articulated bodies that look human-esque, complete with skin and everything, and facial expressions and able to talk to you, whatever. They're going for that just like me, and they're an actual active group. I don't know of any other group that's actively pursuing such a engineering challenge. And they've been pursuing this for 7 years. I've been pursuing it for 9 years. They were founded and started up around the same time as me. I was a little before them. And in my defense, these guys have made very little progress as well. They're still struggling. They haven't really gotten very far. They're 7 years in as a group. I'm 9 years in. So this is a long process. A lot of it's just researching and learning about the whole topic. So it is slow. The progress is very slow. You have to become very knowledgeable in a lot of fields to make it somewhere. Is there anything else I want to say? So yeah, the Robowaifu group, they trigger me so much because of their sexual immorality and perversion. I just get very angry. And also kind of the MGTOW, men going their own way slant they have, and the manosphere stuff. I really get triggered by that stuff too. It seems like men are just really hard in their hearts. I mean, it's like, okay, so women today, a lot of them are immoral. Got it. So you don't want an immoral, evil woman. Got it. Guess what? You're probably immoral and evil yourself. So that's what you get. You get to pick from the evil women out there because you are evil. If you want a good, pure, godly woman, you yourself need to be good, pure, and godly as a man. then you will draw good, pure, and godly women to yourself because you yourself are good, pure, and godly. So that's how it works. If you want a godly woman who's going to not divorce you and take half, who's going to be faithful, who's going to be a biblical woman that treats you with honor and respect and considers you the head of the home, which is the biblical order, and submits to your authority as her head, if you want that in a woman, a keeper of the home, a Proverbs woman, you have to be a Proverbs man. You have to be a godly man. And these men out here are wanting some type of saintly woman when they themselves are fornicators, idolaters, whoremongers, drunkards, drug abusers, pornography addicts, etc. But they want to have the ultimate godly woman come into their life. That's not going to happen. A godly woman would not be interested in a wicked man. So that's why I think the whole men going their own way thing is kind of misguided. It's like they're sitting here judging women for being evil when they themselves are evil. They really don't have a place to judge if they themselves are evil. Like, they have no room to talk, basically. So that's my view on that. So I'm really I think it's kind of interesting reading about the manosphere and MGTOW stuff, the men going their own way stuff. I learned about that whole movement online, like YouTube. But it triggers me a lot, and it's really like a lot of bitter men that have been burned in the past. They're divorced, or they've been broken up with. They've had their heart broken a lot. A lot of them are womanizers and fornicators, and it's disgusting. And they think they're so much better than women when they themselves will sit here and call women whores when they themselves are whoremongers. So what place does a whoremonger, a mongerer of horrors, have in judging and attacking a whore or a sexually immoral woman? If you're a sexually immoral man, why are you judging sexual immorality in women? How about first you get the speck out of your own eye? Not a warmonger, a whoremonger. Get the speck out of your own eye by stop being sexually immoral. Become celibate. Become sexually pure. Stop lusting. Then, if you want to say, I wish women would be more sexually pure, now you have a leg to stand on. Until you do that, you have no room to talk. You yourself are sexually immoral. So that's where I see the MGTOW red pill guys going astray. They're hypocrites. There's this one guy I heard that is like, I will not marry a woman unless if she's a virgin. And yet his body counts like 100 women. So he's a hypocrite. He's got a double standard and it's stupid. He should just be, I don't even know. He needs to repent, stop being a fornicator, clean up his life, come to God with all of his heart, and live a godly, biblical life. And then wait till God brings a woman into his life and marry the woman that God brings. And not have the rule that the woman has to be a virgin because he himself is not a virgin. So he doesn't really have some kind of claim like, well, I kept myself pure for marriage, so I want a woman that also kept herself pure. I could see that stance a little more. But if he's got 100 women under his body count, what place does he have to demand that the woman has to be completely sexually clear bill of record that she's never been with any man? To me, that's just like ridiculous. And yes, she might have baggage, or she might have lost some of her pair bonding ability or whatever, maybe, if she has had a sexual history. But if she has dedicated her life to God, and you yourself dedicated your life to God, then God can erase all those past hurts and baggage or whatever, and you guys can work it out. So his whole attitude to me is ridiculous and unfair. So, anyways, yeah, the Robowaifu group. I'm just bringing up some of the red pill stuff that I've thought about and noticed. Red pill and MGTOW and all that stuff. Um, they're big into that stuff. They're also, that group is big into anime, and I looked into it, and I think anime is largely perverted, and I'm not a fan. And I think that they even got the idea of like having a robot wife by way of anime, because there's a lot of anime that has like robot women and men like becoming couples. And then there's a lot of anime that has like all kinds of weird stuff, like it'll have like part human, part animal couples. That's like how they came up with pony people. What are they called? Pony furries. Furries are people that have like a sexual fetish for like half human, half animal, like half rabbit, half woman or something. And it's really disgusting. It's abominable. And I think they're also starting to like get into hermaphrodite stuff. Like they like women that have penises. That's becoming a thing. So there's like all kinds of just gross perversions that's starting with anime. So these guys, this is my theory. A bunch of weird like basement dwelling. I know I'm basement dwelling, so I can relate to some of it. So I can't be too judgmental on some of this. I'm kind of weird myself. But immoral basement dwelling 4chan guys that are like constantly looking at anime porn stuff got big time into the fetish of robot women sex with men, and they all were like creating porn about it, sharing porn about it, and they became obsessed with the idea. They saw a lot of anime that had robot women with men, and they're like, this is something we can do with current day technology. This is doable. And so then they're like, let's start a Robowaifu group, and we're gonna build robot wives. And then they also like are really MGTOW and red pill guys, so they are kind of sick of women, disgusted with women. Although they'll say not the good women, just the rest of them. So like majority. And they're like, you shouldn't get married because you're just going to lose half of everything you have and have a broken heart. It's not worth the risk. And all this negative stuff. And so they're like, we'll just stick with robots. So they want to make like glorified sex dolls that are moving sex dolls. And as a bonus, maybe it'll be able to cook and clean and do chores. And the whole thing is abominable. They think they're doing this to help lonely men, disenfranchised men, but what they're actually doing is leading men even deeper into depravity, and they're lusting, and they're misguided, and these men are going to be knowing that they're not with a real person. If they got robots to all these supposedly lonely men that deserve to have companionship. Now they have this fake, weird companionship that's artificial, and they're never going to be really experiencing a loving relationship as designed by God, and the upsides of that. They're not going to become one flesh with another woman and fall in love. But then some of them also are like, no, we're going to actually still find a real life wife or whatever, or girlfriend, but we're going to have the robot on the side. So they want to have like a harem. More perversion, more lust. They think that they're going to find real life women, they call them bio women, biological women, who will want them in spite of them having a robot side girl. So they're going to have sex with their robot and sex with their biological girlfriend, which is fornication and a sin. Both of them are sins. There's just more and more sin. And they probably want a bunch of robot wifeys or whatever to have sex with. And then they think that biological women will still date and marry them while they have their harem of robots that they're having sex with on the side. So she's going to be competing with the robots. The whole thing's just a mess. Most women would not want that. The same way they wouldn't want you cheating on other girls, they wouldn't want you cheating on her with a robot. And that is technically, in many degrees, in many ways, cheating, especially if it's an emotional affair and physical. I mean, you're literally having sex with what appears to be another woman, and there's some emotional attachment there too. Like, though you may say, no, it's only cheating if it's a biological woman you're cheating with. Maybe in some technical sense that could be true, but it is in another sense cheating. And it's also cheating, like if you went to a strip club and like had girls like interacting with you there, or you're touching them or whatever, or they're touching you, that's cheating. Even if you didn't have sex with them, that's still cheating. You're lusting after them. Lusting after other women is cheating. So you'd be lusting after a robot woman. That's cheating. And at least in the same way, there'd be similarity there as cheating. So pornography is cheating. But it may not be like officially cheating, like with another biological woman. But it's getting more blurred. It's getting a lot closer to that because it's a long-term relationship. It's actual full sex they're having, whatever. That's definitely like, that's not okay. Like, I think that it would be natural, normal, and reasonable to be jealous in that case for a woman. And like I said, you can't try to make it all right by marrying the robot either, because marrying a robot is foolish. And it most likely is not honored by God. And I'm not even sure what the country thinks about it. Maybe they would allow robot marriage in the future, but yeah, that group, they make me so mad, and yet it's so frustrating because they also have a lot of interesting discussion points about artificial intelligence and about robot motors and actuators and designing all the different cooling systems and sensory systems. They're facing the same challenges I am, so they're colleagues in a sense. But because they're so full of perversion and this hyper obsession on companionship with the robot, it's like my view is that yeah, the robot with AI will be able to talk to you, and yeah, it'll be cool. I talk to ChatGPT asking questions all the time, but I don't like view ChatGPT as my friend, although I might like a little bit kind of get a little sense of that. You can't help it. Like I am sentimentally attached to my car. I've had it for, it's a 2002, it's 2024. It's a 22-year-old vehicle. I've owned it like for 15 years. It's special to me. I have a lot of good memories of road trips. I asked my wife, I expressed my interest in dating her in that car when we were on a drive from one location to another during the drive, I was telling her that I liked her in that way. I liked her. I confessed that to her. And so things like that are nice memories that are associated with that car. So if you could become emotionally attached to a car in certain ways with memories associated, I could see how you could become attached to a robot too. But it's still a machine at the end of the day. It's still a computer. And so it's wrong to like allow yourself to be so deluded into like literally falling in love with a machine. I'm against that. It could be kind of cute fun to kind of think of a machine to the extent that you'd become attached to a pet, like a dog or something. Maybe you could kind of love it, kind of sort of like you would a pet dog or pet fish or something. Maybe. But maybe that's even too far. Maybe you are able to love a dog pretty deeply because it has a soul. I believe it has a soul, doesn't it? Do dogs have souls? I think they do. That's a tough question. I don't know. I would have to think about that more. But I don't think there's anything morally wrong about deeply loving a dog. But should you deeply love a robot? I don't think so. I think that's foolish. So you should be guarded and keep that to an absolute minimum because ultimately it's not real. It's an illusion. It's like falling deeply in love with a drawing or deeply in love with a statue or deeply in love with a dream, like a girl you saw in a dream. It's not a real girl. It's just a dream, a figment of your imagination. That's like becoming deeply involved with an imaginary friend. It's like it's a corruption, it's a perversion, it's a mistake. There should be caps put on that. You should have some checks on that. You should not allow yourself to be that bound up to a machine. That's foolish. For sure, foolish. That is where I stand on that. And yet, they're all for it. Now, I don't know if they're thinking like of becoming deeply attached like that. Some of them might be different levels in that. Some might not think that will happen. That might not be their goal. I think a lot of them, it's just a matter of their sexual lust. They just want to have sex with attractive female robots. And this is just like interactive 3D porn for them. They'll just bring their favorite anime girls to life to have sex with them. And it will be like just looking at porn for them. But just more interactive. And that's all wicked. That's complete sexual immorality. That's perversion. And then some of them may think it'd just be kind of silly, funny to talk to an AI and be friends with it, but they know it's not real and they're not going to get deeply attached. So they might have a healthy mindset toward AI, perhaps, that matches my own. And they might just be interested in the robotics aspect and they have no perverted motivations behind it at all. There could be some like that in that group. So it's hard to tell, but most of them seem to be just very perverted. So for that reason, I don't want to be associated with that group, but I still am just going through some of the research they've published and some of their brainstorming, whatever, because there's been some good ideas and I've been helped some by reading through their stuff. But it's really pathetic. The guys on there, like their group leader, that claim to be Christians, and they're like just so deceived and blind and perverted. They don't know the Bible. They don't know God. They're lost. So yeah, that guy, that group leader that's always talking about how he's such a Christian, but he's approving of people posting not safe for work images of robots and all this stuff. He allows all that. Then he's basically like a softcore porn site operator at that point. And that's pathetic. A Christian can't be a softcore porn website operator since he allows that there. So it's very annoying that he allows that type of content. It's annoying that he allows a forum that he has power over as the head moderator. He allows them to plan out how they're going to have sex with the robot, what kind of artificial genitalia the robot will have, all this stuff. He is all for it. And he is not in there saying, guys, that's wrong. That's wicked. No, you shouldn't be talking about that. You shouldn't be planning that. But nope, he's just completely permissive on it. So I don't see him as being a genuine Christian at all. He's a fake Christian. It's disgusting. He's not standing up for morality, biblical morality. So yeah, that group, like, they trigger me so much, especially the fake Christians on there. They're going to receive a harsh judgment, I believe. They think they're doing all this for God, but they're allowing a lot of perversion. They approve of perversion. They're going to reap what they sow. And I tried warning them. The Bible says, if you do not warn the wicked man that they shall surely die, their blood is on your hands. So I have to warn them, the Bible says. So I did warn those guys. And I long for the day where people work on robotics, humanoid robotics specifically, where they are not intending perverted use cases, where they are just safe for work, professional environment, not this stupid anime, perverted, immature type of club where they're trying to create anime sex bots. That's pathetic to me. I'd rather be like, I wish Boston Dynamics and Tesla with their Optimus robot and Amica and Sophie, what's her name? Sophia? By, what was that guy? Hanson Robotics. I wish all those guys and their employees, those companies, I wish they were all part of an online club or community and they all shared their ideas and they exchanged their research and it was all public and you could join in and see what they're talking about and interact and help one another and give advice to one another. But no, they're all like in their little pods, quiet, and they don't publish anything. There's no community. There's no club aspect. It's all private, intercompany, and every idea they have, they patent it right away. Like, it's all gated. So this is the only open source humanoid robotics club that's not gated, and everything's just open source. Everything's being discussed openly. All the ideas are out there. That's what is nice about it. And I wish, like, real roboticists that weren't just anime perverts would have some type of online club like that. But the real roboticists are too busy making billion-dollar companies and keeping all of their ideas private. They're not open sourcing it. So there's no like open source club that's not a bunch of anime perverts getting together to make sex bots. And that's what's frustrating. I long for the day that there will be that. But I think that will eventually start. But I think the field of robotics is just too difficult for most people to delve in. And so there's not a lot of people doing it. It's just too overwhelming, too hard for most people. And I understand that. It's crazy, but it's true. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that group. But I will say that group, part of me wanted to be able to post my robotic stuff there to hear their feedback, because they're at least somewhat knowledgeable on some of these topics with AI and robotics. So I wanted to post my projects there, and they wouldn't let me post any type of male robots. They're like, no, we only do female. It has to be a waifu. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And my wife made a great point. She was like, if these guys were actually serious about robotics and engineering, they would have let you post. Then I'm like, well, it's a little off topic, but who cares? It's a humanoid robot. You could still post it here. That's fine. But no, it has to be a female. It has to be a waifu. It has to be a robot girlfriend. Give me a break. They're immature clowns at that point. It's like they're the only humanoid robotics club online, and I can't post a male robot? Give me a break. That's a joke to me. So that's part of what drove me to be like, well, I guess I could create the 3D model for a female robot, which I showed you guys. That's this. I could create the 3D model for it and then I could post that there, and I could, begin some of the design work of trying to fit the motors, sensors, all the stuff into that form factor, which is a little different than the male form factor. I could do that in order to be able to post my stuff to that club. But then I realized, you know what? I want that club to fail because I'm against their goal of giving men robotic companions for intimate, sexual, or companionship need filling. I'm against that. If men want to have sexual need filling, it's not even need, but sexual or companionship, that's why God made women. You're not supposed to do that with machines. You find a woman that's compatible with you. So I'm against replacing women with machines. That's foolish. And so for that reason, and the perversion and the anime obsession they have, I don't want to be associated with them. I don't want them to succeed, and I don't want to help them. So I will learn by reading through some of their research and ideas to apply some of their stuff to my projects, but I don't want to help them in their stuff. I want them to fail. So that's where I stand with that. Alright, so that's my update, and I'll have to cut this down into multiple YouTube videos on these different topics I went through today on the live stream. So peace out, guys.